Hey, it's Randy Kugler with Racin with RK. I'm doing a pit stop this week in Galax, Virginia to see my old buddy Todd Shaw, a.k.a. the Sawdust Dude. And we're going to visit here and talk about WK and how he and I have met and how motorsports has impacted his life over the years. Don't forget to go to my website, racinwithrk.com. Got some great photos of karting, both current and vintage, along with some historic karting videos on there. And all of my podcasts, the last one, episode 20, Justin Bonsenor, the NASCAR Wheel and Modified champ, was my last podcast. A great podcast, fine young man. So check it out, racinwithrk.com. But today we're going to talk to Todd Shaw, the Sawdust Dude, and we're going to kind of reminisce about our history together and share some memories. Todd, come on in.
Hey, what's up, Randy? Good to see you, man.
So Todd, tell me a little bit about how you were introduced to motorsports.
Wow, motorsports. I mean, I grew up in South Carolina, and I tell people I've kind of had the best of both worlds. I lived with my parents in West Columbia, South Carolina, but then in the summer times I went and lived with my grandparents in Ainer, South Carolina, to work on their tobacco farm. So just that kind of cross culture of city versus country kind of a thing, and I really was kind of like a country boy at heart, and being in the heart of NASCAR. It seems like we were always at NASCAR races, whether it's like the Darlington Speedway in Darlington, South Carolina, the Southern 500, Lake City, Conway, at some dirt oval modified, run what you brung, drag racing kind of stuff, and so racing was just always a part of our life, from a spectator kind of a side of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we talked earlier, and you mentioned someone that I remember vividly in my youth, and I want to talk a little bit about it because I was so fascinated with this guy, and that's Evel Knievel.
Man.
Tell me how Evel Knievel impacted your youth. I'm not sure in a good way or a bad way, but tell me how he impacted your youth and some of the experiences you had by watching and learning about Evel Knievel.
Dude, Evel Knievel was the man.
Wasn't he?
I mean, It was just like, gosh. I mean, he was larger than life, and, when you look at that, I mean, gosh, thank God for back in those days. I mean, it just seems like eons ago, but, in the late 60s, early 70s, if it wasn't for ABC Wide World of Sports, I mean, really, that's how we got connected with the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500.
Right.
Racing wasn't on TV every Sunday.
No.
And you didn't have that close connection, and it was a lot of listening to the radio. But man, when Evel Knievel came on, I mean, really, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah.
So the problem with that, the downside was, I had my Swin Stingeray, and whatever Evel Knievel did on that Harley, I wanted to do on my bicycle, and I went out there and did it to the chagrin of my parents,
And do I understand that you actually leaped over a pretty well-known racer back in the day?
We talked about this earlier, and as far as like the connection, and it's funny how in life, it's always at 6 degrees, or you're 6 people away from the person.
What's the Kevin Bacon?
Yeah,
7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something.
Yeah, and all that. Well, in life, I've just found out to be true because growing up in West Columbia, a neighbor kid of mine that was literally 2 doors down was later on become a WKA champion, and that's Furman Myers.
Multi-champion. He was one of the best, yeah.
Yeah. And Furman was just a little guy, and I was had my bicycle, and you had to catwalk, and then the famous Evel Knievel pose where he was catwalking and then like doing a peace sign, and so we were trying to do that and pedal the bicycle. But Randy, I bet it's always kind of around construction and woodworking. And so I built a set of ramps, and I had a launch and then a landing ramp. Well, we were getting through at the end of the day, and I would jump Furman and all the other little...
Let's stop. So, let me see if I got this straight. You were a little bit older than Furman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said to Furman, you got nothing to worry about.
I didn't say Furman was smart.
Furman, he doesn't mean that.
We love you, man.
So you said, no, really, seriously, just lay down on the ground.
Yeah.
And you might want to lay on your stomach and close your eyes. And I'll let you know when I'm done.
Yeah.
And then you took off and you jumped over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they had seen me like jump 10 and 11 trash cans like sideways. And here was always the funny thing was, hey, if you come over to the house, they bring you trash can with you.
Yeah.
There's trash all over the neighborhood.
It's kind of an odd request.
Yeah. But, you know, I have to say this about Furman. He was one of the smart kids. He got like close to the range.
He was like first or second in line. Yeah.
First or second.
Yeah, the guy that was 10th or 11th in line, that's the one. Yeah.
He had a tire mark across his belly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but so one day we sat there and we were kind of loading up, and I had to do all this stuff before Dad came home from work. And I had the two ramps like stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
And that thing was, I mean, it was on up there. And they were like, Todd, do you think you can like do that? And I said, well, let's just take it. And I went down by Furman's house. Yeah.
First you went and you put your jacket on and your helmet and stuff to make sure that...
Oh, no.
No?
See, there's a story about that, too. I jumped that thing and took off and hit those two ramps and like went so high up in the air. And Furman and all those guys were like, oh, my gosh, man, you could jump a car. Say no more.
Oh, no.
Randy, I had my parents' Buick Estate station wagon, those big long boats. You know, had the seat in the back.
And this is on a bicycle.
It's on a bicycle, a Swin Stingray, slightly modified. No fuel additives.
Not exactly designed for jumping.
No suspension on it whatsoever. I mean, it was just like, you hit the ground and it was just like bone just shattering kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, we took the station wagon and I jumped it like short ways just across like that, and they're like, "Oh, you got that thing." You know, they're spotting the mark where I hit the ground, and you know, never crashed, never really hurt any of my body parts that I know of today. But
sure about head injuries, maybe.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah.
Sure about that?
I'm okay. Yeah. And so I took the thing long ways and I jumped the car long ways and cleared it well. And I mean, it was like rock star status that day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, there was a kid across the street, Mike Pelletier, who was like charging people admission to watch.
Are you getting a percentage?
No. See, that's what I didn't realize. Mike, you still owe me money, dude. And so, anyway, I sat there and it was late in the day and the sun's about to go down and I'm just like, gosh, it's almost time for Dad. And a new crop of kids and they wanted to see the
groupies.
Next yeah,
the
yeah.
Todd groupies. The
Right,
toddies.
yeah.
The toddies are out now.
I'm going down the street, probably passing Furman's house and just going up and
cranking those pedals.
I got the ramp in sight and I look down the street and here comes my dad.
No.
My dad was coming up. 66 Ford Mustang. Here he comes. And I'm just like, it's too late to abort the mission. Boom! Up in the air, over the station wagon. I hit the brake pedal, slide to the side, and there's my dad. And he's like,
oh my gosh.
He gets out of the car. Kids just scatter.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're gone. And he leaves. And devoted friends were like, dude, is your dad on a gun? And I'm just like, no, he doesn't. He's going to get a
yet.
gun.
He's going to buy one.
He's going to kill you, man. He's going to get help.
Yeah.
My dad, this is so cool. My dad went to Kmart that day and bought me an open-face motorcycle.
Wow.
It was like cherry red. It matched my Stingray bicycle. This was his logic. He goes, Todd, I know you. And if I ask you to quit, you wouldn't do it.
No way. Yeah.
For some reason, you've got that adrenaline gene in your body. He said, son, at least be safe about it. And
That's
he bought
awesome.
me.
That's awesome.
Hey, and here's something that we talked about earlier. And I put, and I would do I had another little bicycle that I did some BMX racing with. And I put a big 55 because Tiny Lund growing up.
Yeah.
Tiny Lund was always a big, he was a South Carolina guy. Some of my dad's friends used to crew for him. And so I was a big Tiny Lund, and I had the big 55. And so
that's cool.
But Evel Knievel, man, that dude, he was just like rock star status.
And I got a lot of them watching them on TV, like you said, on Wide World of Sports. But probably the one that sticks out the most is the Snake River Canyon jump.
Yeah.
And it failed.
Yeah.
But the part of that that's just so incredible is, and for you people out there that are too young to have experienced Evel Knievel, YouTube it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But he was going to jump over the Snake River Canyon, which wasn't. It was serious jump.
It's crazy.
And he had like a jet motorcycle or something on this ramp. And afterwards, he said, I knew I wasn't going to make it, but I couldn't let my fans down.
Yeah.
And he, I would say easily a 50% chance he was going to die, if not more.
Yeah.
And it took off, and halfway up the ramp, the chute came out. But he had too much momentum, so it went off the ramp, and the ramp was probably at least 45 degrees.
Yeah.
And that thing didn't go even halfway across the canyon, and just plummeted down, banged against the rocks, ended up in the water, and he survived it. He says, yeah, I knew we weren't going to make it, but I had to do it.
I'd have pulled the chute too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, he's a smart guy, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, my first memory of you, Todd, and it's a solemn memory, but I want to share it because it meant an awful lot to me, was one of the first races that we worked together, and it was Ocala, I'm going to say 2001, 2000, something like that. And the Manufacturers Cup was at Ocala.
Yeah.
The road race was going on at Daytona, and Marie and I were in Ocala with that race, and my phone rang, and it was my staff calling me from Daytona to tell me that there had been a fatality. And obviously a fatality is terrible.
Yeah.
But not only that, it was someone from Ohio that I knew pretty well.
Yeah.
It was a young man, Michael Day, was 18 years old.
Yeah.
And so I never forget it. And I think that's what really made our connection and solidified our friendship that day. But I went up to you. And for those of you that don't know Todd, he spent a lot of years with us with On Track Ministries. And he was that calming effect. When I knew Todd was coming to the race, I knew no matter what, things were never going to get too offline because Todd was there, and that's a fact. But I came to you and I said, Todd, I need you, man. I said, Marie and I have to leave. We just had a tragedy at Daytona. Man, we need to say a prayer, and I need you to just keep a watchful eye over this event because I got to leave. And you never blinked. You just said, no problem, Randy. We said a prayer together. Marie and I took off, and the rest is history. But that I'll never forget that, Todd. That meant an awful lot to me. But share some memories you have of our relationship and just karting and WK and all the years you spent with us. Just share a couple of those memories.
I mean, I remember that was like one of my first races on the Manufacturers Cup and on the national level. And I'd kind of worked in drag racing and with other faith-based motorsports ministries before NHRA drag racing and all. And kind of my philosophy was always just a little bit different. And I just to stand around and just be the guy that did the invocation or whatever, that just never really was for me. I mean, I remember working for NHRA and sitting around with those guys and working down in the shutdown area or whatever, and finally went up to the speed traps all the way at the end. It's kind of like where they get their final time and speed, and working with the safety safari crew there. And it's like, dude, I mean, let's go out. I'll pick up parts off the track and I'll sweep the track and do all that stuff too. And just kind of always been a hands-on person. I hate sitting around. Yeah. But man, that first race there, when Michael lost his life, and even though we weren't there, people don't realize how tight the racing community is.
Yeah.
And number two, how much gossip is in the racing community.
Right.
So a lot of that stuff, you got to just like nip it in the bud.
You got to diffuse it before it gets out of hand.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
because there's all, by the time you would go from Ocala to Daytona, which is only about 45 minutes, all kind of stories.
Yeah.
And, when you guys said, hey, Todd, could you let the people here know? And I was like, man, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was like, dude, I didn't sign up for this. Yeah, that was what I said inside, but you may not have realized it, but you did, and you came through with flying colors. I appreciate that. Yeah, and because of that, even Michael Sr., we became good friends after that, and to keep Michael Jr.'s memory going after all these years and stuff. That was fun being a part of that. But the karting family was just I always knew. Even in racing, growing up as a kid and being around the Southern 500 and all that, it was just a tight-knit community. And it was a lot of families involved in the sports, but it's like it was an extended family. So, I may not see you until another 3 months until the next race, but it was just like we just picked up or just got off the phone, which, you and I talked a lot during the week and stuff. But, I mean, that's racing.
Yep. Yep.
And some of it's kind of getting away from that a little bit, but then again, it's not.
I think depending on what you're involved with and where you're racing, you can go to the highest level where it's pretty doggone serious.
Yeah, yeah.
Full-blown race team with a tuner,
a
driver coach, a tractor trailer rig, or you can still go grassroots racing. It's kind of what you want. But some great memories for me, Todd. I'll tell you, it's been. I know WK was better for it when we had you involved. That's for sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But I always end my podcast, and this is the first time we've ever done a video, so this is breaking ground for me, Racing with RK. But just share with me how you feel racing has affected your life and what it means to you today. Not just motorsports in general, karting, drag racing, Evel Knievel. It's all that speed rush. It's all the racing element or the motorsports element. How's that affected your life, and what's it mean to you today?
Man, number one is just the memories of, all the way back to, as a kid, and we would sit there, and that race was always on Labor Day. Mm-hmm. And then when NASCAR tried to change that, I remember Kel Yarbrough saying, you're gonna have to remove Labor Day now, because that's the only time you have the Southern 500.
Yeah.
We would get out of church on Sunday and go and spend the night, and we would meet up with my cousins from West Columbia to Ainer, and we'd meet up in Darlington, and we'd spend the night in the infield. And my uncle had a tree service, so we'd take the dump truck and had sides, and so we always had a great a view of the race. But it was the show that went on in the infield.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure. That's where I saw my first naked woman, my first drunk person, and all that other stuff was inside the Darlington infield.
No doubt.
So it was like a dinner and a show. So, but I look back with my cousins and stuff, and back during that time, late '60s, early '70s, was we would sneak into the pits. And guys like Richard Petty and Buddy Baker and the Allisons and David Pearson and those guys, the Wood brothers. Those guys, they were accessible. And my cousin and I would sneak into the pit area before the race was over and go hide in the driver's lounge. And it was kind of like the locker room. They didn't have the rigs and stuff like that. A lot of the cars were towed there on trailers. And it's nothing like today, but I never forget, we were sitting there, and we would hide in the lockers. And after the race, the drivers would come in to change clothes and stuff, and out, my cousin Phil and I would pop out and get autographs and all that stuff. And we did that, Randy, for like 2 or 3 years in a row.
That's funny.
And so, people would say, wait, you ever met Richard Petty? Because my friends always said, Todd, you were raised on 3 things. You were raised on Jesus, the Clemson Tigers, and Richard Petty. That was like the Trinity right there.
Yeah.
So, we would hide in the locker room, and if you say, have you ever met Richard Petty? I said, dude, I've seen Richard Petty in his underwear. But one year, years later, Randy, I was at a trade show, and Buddy Baker walked by.
Yeah.
And super nice guy. Walks by and he kind of looks at me and says, hey, how you doing? I said, good, Mr. Baker, how are you? And he does a U-turn in his little entourage, and he comes back and he goes, where do I know you from?
Oh, no.
I said, no, sir, you don't know me. He goes, no, I never forget a face.
Yeah.
I said, Mr. Baker, the only way that you would ever know me. And I told him a story about us hiding in the locker rooms. He started laughing. He goes, oh, my gosh. He said, I remember that.
That's funny.
He said, one year, me and Bobby Allison walking back, and he said, Bobby, I wonder if those kids are still in those lockers. He goes, and there y'all were.
That's
and
funny.
it's stories and experiences like that. And another time that I'll never forget was we were standing outside the Speedway, and for some reason we were outside. We were having a late meal, getting ready to head back, and we look over outside the Joe Weatherly Museum, and Wendell Scott was over there.
Yeah.
He was waiting to pick up his check to go back home. And so my dad says, why don't you invite him over? And I went over, hey, Mr. Scott, how you doing? I said, you want to have a meal with us? We're having burgers. He said, son, puts his arm around me. We walk over there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he's telling us stories about how, Richard Petty and the Wood brothers and all the guys would give him parts and help him out to keep him running. And he was there waiting to pick up a check to go home back to Virginia. So I look at all that and going to Blaney Drag Strip in Blaney, South Carolina, and seeing the late great Jungle Jim Lieberman, you know, and then get it over to karting and find out like Sean Cook and Ray Cook, and Ray's brother, I believe it was, the old AA Gasser, the Stone Cooking Woods.
Sean's still heavily involved in karting up in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, super awesome people. And you know, when we talk about, and too, like, you know, racing growing up and just seeing all that, and then so and get involved with you guys in the World Karting Association, man, it was one of those things where it was the people, and I'll never forget the first race. I mean, that was Bingo, I think, was the race director.
Bingo Emmons, yeah.
Bingo and Mike Weaver. Yeah, and there was another guy, Ken, kind of from the Wisconsin area.
What was his last name? But yeah, that was our team, and they were good.
Yeah, they were so good, man. I can't tell you, those guys kind of like got me started. Even though I had like NASCAR and drag racing experience on a national level with NHRA, those guys kind of did a good job of kind of fostering along and kind of even seeing what was already there, maybe. And so I just think about, and Steve Shaw was the flagman, and JoJo on the grid.
JoJo Jasinski, yeah. JoJo. Oh my God.
And I got to tell you, the first thing you introduced me to JoJo, and he's like, this is Todd, he's going to be helping us out. And JoJo was like, oh, you got an ambulance? I was like, what? He said, you got an ambulance? I said, I don't have an ambulance. Well, stand right there. And I was like, what the heck? What have I got myself into? But, you know, look at JoJo. It's always kind of laughed about him that people sit there all day, and the ladies, the track moms, they were like, Joe, now you need anything? They're bringing him fruit and food, and I'm like, this dude's got a racket going on.
Yeah.
Between that and number 10 sockets that would pick off the track, I think that dude, and I remember, you know, Joe, for those that don't know him, I mean, he a neat guy, had a booming voice, you know, and he told me later on in life that he grew up in an orphanage.
Oh, is that right?
In Wisconsin. Yeah. And he didn't have any fingers on one hand.
He did not.
Lost them in a hay baling as a youth.
Ugh.
And but, you know, that was the thing that nothing slowed him down. And he would sit there, and there was a kid on the grid one day chewing his fingernails. And Joe was like, hey, better stop that. I did that in my sleep one time. So Joe held up that fist, and that kid's eyes were like that. I said, Joe, man, you're right. He said, that'll stop him.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the other thing, Lisa and I, my wife, we were at Daytona 500 one time. Somebody had given us some nice tickets, but you know, Daytona always had it was like a whole block or 2 blocks with Dodge merchandise and. Larry Steep, the comedian, that's when they were doing the "Hey, that thing got a Hemi," you know, commercial and all that. Met those guys, and we were sitting there, and we were walking down the street past the Daytona International like headquarters, and I hear this, "Hey, you can't park there!" And I hear that. I said, "Wait a minute, that's JoJo."
JoJo, he was a parking guru down there.
Well, let me tell you what happened this day, and I look at it, I said, "Hey, Joe, who are you screaming at? Hey, you can't park his car there." Brian, I told him, and I said, Brian, you can't park your car there. And I was like, wait a minute, who's this Brian? It's Brian France.
Yeah.
You can't park your car there. I was like,
I'm sure he did.
I'm sure he did. And about that time, we're talking, and here comes Brian France, and he's like, Joe, is this okay over here?
Yeah, no doubt.
I was like, man.
Everybody's afraid of JoJo.
Yeah, he commanded. He had such a presence. That guy, I mean, I miss him, and he was a super cool guy. But that's stories like that. But I remember one time you and I were at the KMI show in Chicago, and we did a Manufacturers Cup banquet, and Kenny Vinberg was there, and of course Marie was always there, and that was when Amanda was a part of the team. And we were leaving that Sunday, and we were sitting there. Yeah, it was Sunday. We were sitting there, and you guys had to catch an early flight out. And you know, I tell people, I worked in motorsports and as a public speaker solid for 15 years before I got out, and I added it up. In those 15 years, I spent 3.5 years in a motel room.
Yeah,
for real. When it adds up, you think, and you did a lot more traveling than I ever did.
I know what
I think
you're
my busiest year, I had like 36 races in one year.
Wow.
And so 36 weeks. That's just racing. That wasn't all the other public speaking I was doing. So 3.5 years of your life is spent in a motel room. And there's 3 things that I always thought about. You'd go somewhere, it's like, okay, what color is my rental car this weekend? I don't know what I'm driving.
Oh, I know. I know where you're going with this.
Number 2, number 2. What is my motel room number?
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for that look, and you had to keep the little paper sleeve because otherwise you were lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just a plastic card. Yeah.
And I would wake up in the middle of the night, and still do sometimes. I'd wake up. It's like Vietnam flashbacks. I wake up and go, "Where am I?
Yeah.
What town am I in?" I mean, isn't that not the craziest thing? That's the kind of stuff like, racers that race 30, 40 weekends out of the month that you go through. But we came to my show, and Randy and Amanda took off before me, and we're like, "Hey, I'll see you later. Okay, see you in a couple of weeks," kind of thing. And Randy out here is going like, "Man, where's our car? What color is it?" And I see him doing his little key bob, and so I grabbed mine, and I start hitting it, and take you all the way across the parking lot.
I know, at least 10 minutes. Well, what the heck? And I'd go where the beep was, and it wouldn't work. Finally, I heard that laugh, and I turned around. You son of a gun! That was classic.
I didn't think you were fast, but I'll tell you what, you were like, "Todd, I'm going to get you." And I was like, "No, you're not going to catch me." I was like, "Oh, crap, he's coming fast, man."
I don't know what I'd have done if I'd have caught you, but I was calling your bluff.
Oh, man. And, it was stuff like that. I mean, sometimes you just got to laugh, but they were just good times.
They were, absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.
Good deal. Well, listen.
Yeah, man.
The Sawdust Dude, Todd Shaw, on YouTube. You got to check out his YouTube channel, The Sawdust Dude.
Appreciate it.
This is my first vidcast. Racing with RK. We'll call it a pit stop because that's what it was here in beautiful Galax, Virginia. Until next time, make sure you check out my website, racingwithrk.com. And remember, say a prayer to your firefighters, law enforcement, first responders, hospital workers. And as always, racers don't last forever, but racing memories do. This is Randy Kugler and Todd Shaw with Racing with RK and the Sawdust Dude. Catch you next time.
Awesome. Got some good stuff,
All right,
man.
buddy. Good job.
Yeah.